DesignSafe, a cloud-based environment for research in natural hazard engineering. This is being presented by the PI of that project, Alan Rathje. Alan Rathje is the Warren S. Bellows Centennial Fellow, Professor in the Department of Civil, Architectural, and Environmental Engineering here at the University of Texas at Austin, and is the Senior Research Scientist at the UT Bureau of Economic Geology. She has expertise in the area of earthquake engineering, engineering seismology, and remote sensing, and is the principal investigator of the DesignSafe-CI.org cyber infrastructure for the NSF-funded Natural Hazards and Engineering Research Infrastructure, or NHERI, which has been going on here at UT with Ellen for about it's 2 years now, isn't it?
There we go. Yeah, it's about 2.5 years now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it seems like only yesterday.
I know.
While you're having fun. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ellen to tell us more about DesignSafe.
All right. Thanks a lot, Niall. So yeah, as Niall said, I'll talk about DesignSafe, which is a cyber infrastructure specifically for natural hazards engineering. And it's really taken it's been a great synergy between TAC and the earthquake engineering and natural hazards engineering communities. Let's go to the next slide. Let me get that. There we go. So just to give you the broader perspective of what we're trying to do with DesignSafe. So it's a web-based research platform that provides not only access to data, but also the computational tools needed to manage, analyze, and understand that data that we use to understand natural hazards, and in particular, the impact of natural hazards on the built environment. Our vision for DesignSafe is to provide a cyber infrastructure that is really part of the research process, the research discovery process. So how do we get there? We're supporting end-to-end research workflows, as well as the full research life cycle, all the way from when you just start thinking about some research you want to do, all the way to the end where you share and ultimately publish that data. We provide cloud-based tools that support the work that people want to do on a diverse types of data. Importantly, we're one component of something Niall mentioned, which is NHERI, and I'll talk just a little bit more about what NHERI is, but our second part of our vision is really to amplify our partners, link our capabilities, and not only the NHERI partners, but really natural hazards researchers around the globe. So just a little bit about NHERI. It's NSF funded. We're providing shared use research infrastructure to researchers in the US, and as well as, some of it can be accessed abroad. These are the main components. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the CI component, but importantly, they're shared use experimental facilities like shaking tables, tsunami wave basins that people are generating data at, that we are responsible for helping curate and provide access to. There are people going out and doing rapid reconnaissance research from the Rapid Center using various types of field equipment. We need to be able to deal with that type of data. And there's also a computational modeling and simulation center. So we're also dealing with simulation data. So lots of different types of data in different contexts that we're involved in. So we're really a big part of linking all of these components together. So moving on to what specifically DesignSafe provides. If you go to our website, today you'll see these 4 main headings on the top: Research Workbench, Learning Center, NHERI Facilities, and NHERI Community. The Research Workbench is really the place to do the research. It includes our Data Depot, which is the data repository. It includes the Discovery Workspace. That's where our tools reside that can work on data that's included in the Data Depot. And then finally, the Reconnaissance portal, which is specifically to provide access and easy searching of data that's collected during field reconnaissance. So that's, again, the main research areas. Of course, we need to be able to teach people how to use the cyber infrastructure. So the Learning Center provides those training resources, as well as broader engagement with students and natural hazards engineers doing research. The NHERI facilities, as I mentioned, we're part of this NHERI network. And so that's where you can find information about all of the NHERI facilities. And then in our efforts to bring the community together and provide some, virtual interactions, we have the NHERI community section, which involves not only things like news and announcements, but we're leveraging Slack to provide kind of an online community where we have a DesignSafe Slack channel or Slack team, and when you join DesignSafe and get an account, you get an invitation to join the Slack team where you can interact with other folks about DesignSafe. I am going to focus mostly on the research workbench, given the audience I'm speaking to. So let me first talk about our data depot. Importantly, we have these different levels of access. We have a private area that as a user, you'll have my data. We also have an area where you can create a project. And these projects are semi-private, where you can control access to selected team members. So it's really a collaborative space. We have an area for published data and published works, which is publicly accessible, as well as curated with respect to our data models. And then finally, we have an area of called community data, which is also publicly accessible. But as my colleague Dan Stanzione likes to say, it's a little bit of the wild, wild west. So yeah, it's uncurated, and you can certainly search and see what you can find, but it doesn't follow the detailed data models. Also within the data depot, we support upload and download via various mechanisms, everything from as simple as a web browser. We integrate with different cloud service providers, Box, Dropbox, Google Drive. So your cloud service providers will show up within the data depot, and you can move things into My Data or a project. And then for those bigger bulk transfers, we use what y'all were just talking about, tools like Globus. So we've integrated all these different types of mechanisms to move data around. When you're in the data depot, you can also manage and preview files, and then ultimately through your projects, you can organize, curate, and ultimately then publish your data. So I just want to give you a little look on what the data depot looks like, and in particular, what a project looks like when it's published. So the first thing you'll notice here on the left-hand side, you can see My Data, My Projects, box.com. So this is where you can navigate to all those different levels within the data depot. But I can navigate into the published area and look at this very specific project. Similar to a journal paper, we've got our PI, which would be equivalent to authors, data publication, some keywords, a description. And then within this project, we can have multiple experiments that have been published. So this experiment was about large-scale laboratory experiments of wave impacts on vertical cylinders. We can scroll down to this experiment and take a closer look. And very quickly, by scrolling down the page, you can find the data. In some of our previous instances with dealing with earthquake engineering data, we've developed data repositories that were not quite as easy to find the data. So one of our goals here was to easily find the data, and that's shown here under the various events. Now, you may not fully appreciate the organization of the data. So if you click on relations here, you can see basically a tree that explains how the different elements of the data are linked together. So for instance, for this experiment, we have the model configuration in blue, the sensor configurations in green, and then these events listed that are associated with the sensor and the model. The beauty here is this is flexible. Not every user is going to organize their data the same way, although you do need to have a model, a sensor, an event. But it allows the users to organize the data that makes sense to them and document how it's organized. So ultimately, a new user can come in and understand the data and use it. Importantly, both the project and the experiment have a DOI, and so that it's citable with authors and publishers, etc. And so importantly, we can find that data easily moving forward. I thought I'd take a second to mention our data management philosophy, which I've kind of alluded to in my previous couple of slides, is we really want to make this as easy as possible for users to store, share, document, and publish that data. And we're focused on achieving their goals rather than setting up a lot of rules. I had a colleague who said, I want tools, not rules, because in the previous iterations, again, lots of rules and nobody likes to put a lot of metadata together. So we want to make sure things are documented well enough that people can reuse the data, but not be too onerous on the data generator. So as I mentioned, flexible data models that support how organizers want to organize their data. And importantly, we have develop different data models for kind of the major different types of projects. So I showed you an experimental project, but if you have a simulation project, the organization is a little bit different. Similarly for hybrid simulation, field reconnaissance. And then of course we in an effort to support any other type of data people might not want to share or may want to share, we have an other type project, which is a little bit more free-flowing. Now on the other side, we have the Discovery Workspace. So this is where we provide various types of tools for researchers. We have a lot of computational tools. I'll focus on the data analysis tools that we have available. One that we're really promoting is Jupyter Notebooks. And I know you guys have heard about Jupyter, I guess, in one of your previous meetings. We also have MATLAB, of course. You're all familiar with MATLAB, but we have a cloud-based version so you can work again on those files that are located in our data repository. QGIS, which is an open source GIS program, because some of our work is in the geospatial domain, and that makes things, so a GIS tool is important. And then we developed our own tool called HazMapper, which somewhat has similar functionalities to Google Earth, but we can have a little bit more control on how it's being used here within the workspace. So let me just give you some examples of how we're using Jupyter. Some of our users are developing electronic data reports, and it really provides an interactive interface with the data that they're publishing. So this data report in the past would be a 300-page PDF plotting all of the sensor data for, you know, a large amount of the experiments. So it could be, as I said, hundreds of pages. Now this electronic data report, again, it looks like a nice paper, but later on we have an interactive data plotter at the end. And then this allows the researchers to start interacting with the data without much work, so they can see if it's data that would be useful for them to use in their research. And then, of course, this Jupyter Notebook could be downloaded or copied into My Data, and then ultimately revised and used by the next researcher who wants to use these data. For the reconnaissance portal that I mentioned, and this will hit into the sorry, I saw the chat and I wanted to see if it related to me. So this will lead into the HazMapper, which, the tool which I mentioned a moment ago. So our reconnaissance portal is another part of DesignSafe, which provides an easy way to identify published and archived data sets that are in the data depot, but they're from reconnaissance events. So this fall was an amazing time for natural hazards reconnaissance, I must say. So within about a 6-week time frame, we had 4 hurricanes and an earthquake. So we know all the hurricanes in the Gulf and the Caribbean. And then we had the Mexico City earthquake. And so what you can see here is when we're usually looking for data from a specific event, we can more easily identify them just from a simple map like this. And so we can then click on, for instance, and I'm going to go to a different event, not one shown here, but we did a reconnaissance for the Kaikoura earthquake in New Zealand in 2016. When you click and look at the details for that event, the available data sets are listed. Some of these data sets will be in DesignSafe. Some of them may be outside of DesignSafe. but now you can easily find them. And then, for instance, if we go to the landslide inventory, we can open one of the files in HazMapper. So this is an interactive map viewer. And in this case, what I'm showing here is the red polygons represent the landslides that were generated by that Kaikoura earthquake. And the blue and the pink lines represent our GPS tracks while we were in the field. I've got some geocoded photographs that have been, we just drag and drop and they're put into the appropriate location. So this really allows us to assemble that type of geospatial data to share with our teams and share with other researchers. And we've made use of this significantly more recently in the hurricane events in terms of people looking at damage to specific structures and having a way to archive those results as opposed to a bunch of photographs that are annotated. So I'm going to stop there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if people have them.
Very good. Thanks, Ellen. That was a good overview of what is a rather expansive system. So any questions from folks in the audience?
I've got one. This is David Tarbotton. Great presentation. I guess I was wondering what you have in terms of capability for interoperability with other systems, and could, for example, data in a different system be used with your QGIS tool, for example?
We haven't gone through that use case yet, but we're certainly open to identifying which data sets you may be interested in operating with. So we haven't gone down that path yet. We're doing we're considering like open topography, for instance. We just started some discussions with them and seeing how we can interact with them. So that's something that's in our interest, but we haven't done anything specifically yet.
So maybe I'll follow up with you afterwards, but it'd be really interesting to see if we could get, say, GIS data from HydroShare and displayed with QGIS, because we don't have a capability like that.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great, yeah.
With David on the line, this morning when we had a call with our water data science team, there was a question, and this is not something I'm familiar with, but the question was, what is the difference between your platform and the SUMA? And David Turbot, maybe you could ask the question more precisely.
Go ahead.
Sure. Well, do you know what SUMA is, or have you heard of it?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
So I think the answer probably is that there's no similarity. SUMA is a hydrologic modeling capability for, I guess it's called Structure for Unified Multiple Modeling Alternatives. And it's really a systematic way to go through representing different processes in models to try and evaluate which work best. So I think, yeah, I mean, I don't think it has very much in common with what you've shown. Now, the system that I'm actually working on, HydroShare, does have quite a bit in common with what you're doing. So I've been watching with interest in learning about what you're doing here.
Okay, great, great. Yeah, and I should mention, I'm not sure I specifically said it, I mean, through DesignSafe, we provide users with those computational tools. The ones that require it have access to HPC. And so we're trying to lower the bar, lower the barrier to getting people to take advantage of high performance computing for various types of tools. And so, that sounds like, at least on the SUMA side, that might be kind of, something that you might consider as well.
Yeah.
Not necessarily through us, but.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Go ahead, David, sorry.
I would say SUMA could be one of the tools or models that is in here that acts on some of this data, perhaps.
Yeah, and I should mention that our mandate from NSF is earthquake and windstorms, which then hurricane, storm surge, and water comes into play. But the hydrologic, like flooding side of things, does not specifically fall into our purview. But we're very happy to collaborate with folks in any way that relates to natural hazards. So we'd be very interested to hear more about the flooding side of things.
Right. So I mean, when I think of the project, HydroShare is quite similar to this, but just with a mandate on hydrologic data. So,
okay, great.
So yeah, I think it'd be interesting to start to look in the out years and so how the federation between these projects could take place. So
yeah.
to wrap it back to what we were talking about with the IRODS portion as well. So I'll just chime in real quick and say that a lot of the design safe stuff is based on the Agave frameworks that we've developed here at TAC, which power the now Cyverse, formerly iPlant. And so there are federation capabilities there. It's just, you know, at hours in the day and money's in the bank,
Right.
sort of limitation.